And who needs Alan Moore when we have Commie Mark?
Огонь на подавление! Враг сзади по левому флангу! Огонь! Врач! Они...
Come on. Come and say g'day. I'll slip an extra shrimp on the barbie for you.
And I am starting to just become a big, huge Commie Mark fan. So
Огонь на подавление! Враг сзади по левому флангу! Огонь! Врач!
Hello, greetings, comrades. It's me, Commie Mark, again. Hello. Great episode lined up today. Like, I'm really excited for this one. We've got a real smart, big brain guest on. Like, hoping that we're gonna learn a lot. And as always, like, joining me, co-hosting the show, we've got the Secretary of the Revolution, it's Stencil Artist Jan. How are you doing, comrade?
I'm okay. How are you today?
Yeah, I'm good. I missed you. Like, you've been away to Europe.
Yeah, we went to Belgium. We went to visit the battlefields from the graveyards from the First World War. It was very interesting last weekend. Found my great uncle's grave, which nobody even realised he was a person because he died before my father was born, and my grandfather never spoke about the First World War. So this man has been in a cemetery for 104 years without anybody even knowing he was there.
Well, it's a good job that you've finally found him. Yeah. We'll just quickly check in with the chat before we bring in a guest for the week. Nefarious is here. He says, "Hail nerds." Hail Nefarious. Bristolian Dave. All right, me babas. Thomas Took is here. Thomas the Took Engine. I thought of that joke earlier. Like, we'll call him that. Mad Roof's here. Vinny's here. Vinny is the artist on Krishna Kid, which we'll have a little look at. Also, Richie Dupe is here. He says, "Hail Comic Mark, hail Comics Gate, hail the mother-loving chat, and bananas to all comrades." Thank you. Direct from Fidel Castro. Castro gave oranges and it, like, to Eastern Europe for Christmas or whatever. Hojo's here. Oh, and Richie Dupe says, "Big brain, nobody from CG then." So that's the perfect, like, segue to bring in our guest. And well, here he is, Alexander Adams. Hello.
Greetings, comrades.
I love it when they get into it. So before we ask, when we have new guests on the show, we always ask them the same question first, which is this:
Are you a member of the Communist Party, or have you ever been a member of the Communist Party?
I plead the fifth.
Yeah,
even though I'm British.
Yeah, we get that answer a lot. Jan is, of course, not a communist. He's like one of those conservative types.
Yes.
We've got like a good yin and yang relationship. Like balancing each other out or whatever. So if it's not rude of me to ask, like, what would you describe yourself as, like, politically?
A mixture of a lot of things. So it's going to be a mixture of. I have some old liberal tendencies, but I'm a touch socially conservative and a little bit of reactionary thrown in there. So a little bit for everyone.
Yeah, a nice, like, a cocktail. Yeah, that's good. Okay, so for people in the chat who don't know, Alexander is like an artist, an art critic, a writer, etc. Like, we have his website just here. Like, you can buy his books there.
Not quite. There's a link to buy the books from there. Yeah, it's not actually from that site, but yeah.
All right, great. So is there anything else that you would add? Like,
yeah, I would say, yeah, you can find me at Adams Artist on Twitter. If you are doomed to haunt those particular realms, that's where I can be found. I can also be found on alexanderadamsart.substack.com, and yeah, lots of social media links all over the place. So.
Substack's an interesting one. I'm seeing lots of people like using it as a sort of blogging platform now, like because they claim to champion free speech. I haven't really seen that challenged too much yet. Like, but
yeah, they seem to be fairly broad in their outlook. I've not heard of anyone being banned or anything. So yeah, I mean, it remains to be seen. I mean, obviously, big money goes through sort of, Stripe and MasterCard and all the sort of the payment processes. So it's not necessarily going to be the website that's doing anything to you. It's Amex or something's going to be doing something to you.
Like my friend Martina Marcota, like was like fully debanked from like the banking system, like for her associations, shall we say. So that's a real threat.
Does she know what associations they were in particular, or is it just sort of generally?
She was friendly with people in the Proud Boys crowd. She worked for Rebel News Media. Her husband was not kicked out of America, like declined a visa to travel to America. Her husband's British, and his name's Jack Buckby. You may know of him. Like, he was previously in the British Nationalist Party, like as a young man or whatever, being groomed to take over. He's now like a counter-extremist writer. Like, he's a real interesting guy. Like, it's got a... But yeah, so that's unrelated. That kind of thing can happen, and it it only takes one person at one of these mega corps, like, and you're done. Bristolian Dave sharing the Twitter link in the chat for people. Go and have a look at that. So
I have a question, if I may. Alexander, have you seen that Twitter's now doing this subscription thing? They've started it in America. It's not in the UK yet.
So that's separate from the blue check mark thing?
It seems to be built into the blue check mark that people can subscribe to. It must be like a secondary part of your account.
Okay. So you can speak exclusively to sort of your particular members or your particular followers without anyone else being to follow. Oh, okay. No, I hadn't heard about that. I'm on Twitter, but I'm not really in Twitter. So yeah, I don't use it very much.
I just find it interesting that Elon Musk is kind of taking what the basis of Twitter, and now he's looking at expanding it into more and more things. And I'm wondering if is it eventually going to be the catch-all?
Well, I interestingly saw that Substack's going the other way, that they've started up a sort of a Twitter alternative. as a as a notes channel. I've not checked it out myself, but yeah. So it looks like Substack's including a sort of a Twitter alternative, and Twitter's trying to do a sort of an exclusive messenger system. Yeah. I don't follow it very closely, but there's all sorts of possibilities opening up. The problem is that you get so many different platforms. I think that you tend to find yourself getting spread awfully thinly.
Yeah, that's exactly that's certain ones are for certain things, but like you say, you could spend your entire life just doing updates on social media, and you never actually create anything as well.
Yeah, that's why I have to turn it off. I've got so much to do that I can't really engage. I've got like a presence. It's just like a sort of a placeholder, so that if anyone's mad enough to come and imitate me, that I'm already there. But I mean, not that anyone would. So yeah, so I tend to try and avoid it. I do a lot of stuff. I write a lot of articles. I should explain who I am. So I'm an artist. I'm a writer. I'm a critic. I went to art college, studied fine art and art history. So I work as an art critic. I'm also a cultural critic. I wrote poetry. I'm a poetry editor for a publishing house called Bournebrook Press. And I followed CG, Comicsgate, a little bit, which I think we'll get onto. And that was the origin of this book, Culture War.
Oh, there it is. Let me get it.
Culture War, Art, Identity, Politics, and Cultural Entryism. And you guys can ask me whatever you like about that. And I wrote a couple of articles and did a couple of interviews regarding Comicsgate back in the day. And so that's how I got into this.
That's where my first interaction with your work came from. Many years ago, we considered editing the Comicsgate Wikipedia page, which is gate kept to hell. And I did a little digging into that, and so unsurprisingly, it's gate kept by the very people that we're opposed to, people working in the comic industrial complex or whatever. So that was the first interaction that I had with it. Was particularly this article in it. And what impressed me about this was this is the most accurate description of what Comicsgate is that I've ever seen from someone who's not in the middle, flying the flag themselves. And it there's such a prejudiced view of what CG is actually about, and it was refreshing to see that. And just a moment ago, I mentioned the phrase "the comic industrial complex," which is a sort of half joke that make because I have this theory or whatever that in America, not just in comics but in the media altogether, there's this coalition between the ruling class, between big business and the media. And if you look at American news, their oldest newspapers are started by politicians, by Hamilton and all of that. It's all interwoven together. I call it the comic industrial complex. And a few months ago, I made a video about Pat Mills, who's the founder of 2000 AD, in the UK. And he was being fash-washed on Twitter, when he's a victim of bigoteering, when, everyone says, you disagree with this thing, ergo, you're a bigot. And I made a joke about the UK comic industrial complex, the joke being that we don't really have it, our comic book industry is really lame in comparison. And the video came out and my viewers watched it, and it was fine. And it, how videos go, people watched it and then it tapers out a bit. And then a couple of months later, just one day, it was boom, there's this massive spike of activity on the video. So I do some digging on Twitter, and it turns out that those very people who work at 2000 AD and in the UK comic industrial complex had found the video in it and proved and passed it around like between them in their like little clique, and they're all saying, look at this guy like saying there's a comic there's like 12 of us. It's like, yeah, that's kind of the joke, like and
you've chased everybody else away. There's nobody left to chase away.
Yeah, and I love the idea that the fact that there's 12 of them proves that it's not.
And they all know each other.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like, literally proved my point. So I've been working on 2 videos in particular, but this one about the UK comic industrial complex, like, and the way that the government subsidizes like the media, particularly in comic books in this case, and then that led me on to the National Lottery funding and the Arts Council, and then suddenly like I come across you again and I'm like, oh, this is the guy who wrote that Comicsgate article all the way back like 4 years ago or whatever it was. So then that's when I reached out to you, like, oh, I reckon we can line up some ducks here.
Yeah. That's me. I wrote this thing.
Yeah.
So this is a pamphlet that I wrote, which is talking about the very things that you're talking about, like the corruption, the politicization of the arts, the way that there is a sort of a nexus between the state and NGOs. In this case, it's the Arts Council, which administers grants and funding to venues and artists and creative bodies in the UK. And yes, and pointing out the mismanagement and the overspend and the insane identity politics behind it. So yeah, that was my pamphlet, and it was actually mentioned in the Houses of Parliament.
Wow,
that's pretty dope.
Yeah, so that was Claire Fox, who I know sort of slightly from doing some events with her, and she was up there in the House of Lords holding this up in front of all these peers and bishops and and lords and barons and so forth, and so that was quite nice. And yeah, and this, sorry, and I should say that this is also still available. So if you go to my Twitter, you'll find links as to how you can buy this. We just did it as a pamphlet, so that's that. We're going really old style. Like you're doing videos, but you know we're back in the 18th century. We're doing pamphlets.
Yeah. We love that over here in CG, like small press and stuff. Like that's gangster. We've got a question already from the chat. Rat King asks, where's all the artistry of buildings gone? Gargoyles, tile and sculptured brick, etc. You'll be unsurprised to learn that I'm a massive fan of Stalinist architecture, and it like I love that stuff. I do.
Well, you'd be interested to know, I actually got back from Warsaw just recently, and plenty of Stalinist buildings there. They've got the Palace of Science and the Arts, which is right in the center of Warsaw, and it was a gift of Stalin. And basically it was kind of like, you know, like the Godfather movies, like when someone offers you a gift, you just can't turn it down. It's like one of those things. When Uncle Joe offers you a gift of a massive, great skyscraper in the center of your city, you say, thank you, Uncle Joe, just what I was looking for. Yeah. So they built this thing, and it was finished in 51, I think, and Stalin died in, 53 or something, 54. So yeah, it was right at the end of Stalinism, and yeah, so I was over in Warsaw doing various things, and interestingly enough, Stalin kind of after the Second World War, he was like, you know, like he was going to get full historicist on you. So he was saying like we don't want any of these brutalist buildings now, but we want brutalism, but with ornaments and with little knickknacks and little ornamentation. So it's basically you've got these giant concrete skyscrapers, but they've got like little sort of Gothic, like sort of little fleur de lis on the top and stuff, and weird extra decoration. Because it was someone called Adolf Loos in 1900s. He said that ornamentation was a crime. He said ornamentation was immoral because it was outdated. And a lot of architects who came after him said, oh, you know, that guy knows, he knows his stuff. So there was this drive for purity and cleanliness and straight lines and flat walls and no fancy windows, you know, sort of no sort of sort of coverings around the top of the windows. You know, no decorated lintels, no carvings, no fancy painting, sort of mosaics on the outside. It was going to have to be very plain and simple. But when Stalinists got really patriotic during the Second World War, because he had to inspire the people, and strangely enough, communism wasn't terribly inspiring, but Mother Russia was a lot more inspiring. So he said, you know, fight and die and preserve the motherland rather than preserve communism. And one of his things was remember your heritage as a Russian. And so what happened was lots of buildings, including the very famous buildings for the underground in the various Russian cities, Soviet cities. A lot of them went really old style, like Romanov style design. And so they're actually fantastically ornate. And so those were built in the late 30s and the 1940s. And that was that's how decoration came back in through the back door via Stalin.
Wow.
Oh, where's the comment gone? Rat King again says, Mark, can you give me a quick rundown of the comic industrial complex? What are the economic incentives? Please elaborate. Okay, so I'm sure we'll give that a go. So the government give grants to people in the name of promoting diversity, and we want to hear from these marginalized voices, from the oppressed. And I have a good example of that and the hypocrisy of that. One of the criticisms that I get is for being a vulgar Marxist and a class reductionist, and that second one at least is accurate. That's my big issue with identity politics.
Are those your pronouns?
No, we and ours are my pronouns.
Okay.
I think that identity politics is divisive and a distraction from class solidarity. But yeah, so here's an example. This book here, this is funded by the National Lottery and through the Arts Council. And first of all, the National Lottery is a hope tax on the poorest people in it, people with gambling addictions and stuff. And then that money gets funneled to the Arts Council to pay for things for the bourgeois, to enjoy their operas and stuff. And in this case, this is, we're helping marginalized brown people, so aren't we good? And, I don't believe that it's based on any sort of morals. It's more about, come Akbar at my dinner party, tell all of my friends about how your house got blown up in Iraq, and it it's for that kind of thing. So this is a book that was funded by the Arts Council called Self-Made Hero. And you can see it's got the keywords everywhere. Now I can't find one. It's all about diversity, and we're giving voices. It's right there. Promoting diversity in comics publishing. They give a free 12-week mentoring program to, these young, struggling people of black, ethnic, minority groups, or whatever, however we call them here. It seems offensive, whatever you call them. So they made this book for them, and to give them a chance. Catalyst, an anthology book. And here's all the people who worked on the book, and you can see they have a range of ethnicities and genders and sexualities and all of that stuff. But with the exception of this woman, Charlotte Bailey, every single one of them is a full university graduate, everyone in it. This guy is finishing his master's degree. They all have. I looked into all of them. This one, I couldn't find anything that says, she has a degree in this or whatever. But you can see, she runs workshops herself, on Afrofutures and stuff. These aren't marginalized voices. These are,
established.
At the very least, middle-class people in it. all of them, every single one. Like, where's the rest of them? So the point is, the government through the Arts Council, like, pay for this book to be made, as long as it's reaching the correct audience, and then the company behind it, Self-Made Hero, you know, they just get to keep all the money in it. Like, I can't find for definite any information that these people were even paid. Like, you know, they got a free mentoring program, like, which, as a propaganda artist, like, that's how I would describe. You don't get paid, like, for taking part. We're giving you a free thing. So yeah, that's an example, Rat-King, of how this works. That, you know, there's an incentive for you as a creator to, like, lean into your intersectionalities, whatever they may be, unless, you know, it's a white Christian kind of a thing. Would you agree that's a fair description, Alexander?
Yes, it's sort of race consciousness for me, but not for thee. So if I got all race conscious, I think people would. I don't think the Arts Council would be terribly pleased about that.
No, so that's the thing. Like, we have a little group here, like, of UK-based artists, and we have there is diversity in our group. Like, it's not something that, like, is at the forefront. We wasn't like, oh, we need a black guy, let's find a black guy. Like, you know, a black guy came along, like, and he just joined the group. I mean, like, that's how it works. And so I looked into this very thing, and it, like, how do we get, like, some kind of funding? How can we jump onto, like, this gravy train? I'm called Commie Mark. Like, they should throw money at me, and like, theoretically, like,
that was the plan at the beginning, and it's
Yeah,
backfired.
But yeah, so I looked into it, and there's all kinds of, like, barriers of entry in it. Like, that the things I'm going to describe may appear to be small things. Like, one of them is that you need to have a bank account in the name of your organization with 2 co-signatories or whatever. Like, now that might not be hard to do, but I don't know how to do that, so I haven't done that.
That's not normal for the average person, unless, I mean, like, I have a company, but that's basically because, you know, that's an easy way for me to pay tax. But I'm the only person in the company; it's just me.
Yeah. Well, that's how we all operate here as well. And like, you know, but yeah, so that's a whole thing. Just looking in that chat. Oh, Brian Christgau's here. Hello. Rat-King says, attack helicopter and Pinochet are my pronouns. You know, I was a little bit worried about being a communist in such a right-wing space, but it's been very inviting. Like, everyone keeps offering me free helicopter trips. Like, so that's very
But you haven't accepted any. I can tell you haven't accepted any yet.
If I ever go to America, I'm wearing a parachute, like, the entire time. Just in case. Cringe is cringe, yeah. Most of this woke shit is a middle class problem. Yeah, I bang that drum all the time, like, that it's people, like, looking for oppression, and like, so they can say, oh, I'm oppressed as well.
Yeah.
When, like, I am a communist, obviously, and, you know, I think that society plays a role. There is real systemic oppression, like, out there, like, but at the same time, like, it's important for you as an individual to understand that the only thing you have direct control over is yourself, like, and your actions, like, and sitting at home crying about it, like, isn't gonna solve that problem. Like, there's lots of successful people in all, like, areas that they did some I don't know, like, it's a complicated subject to me. Hello, tree goblin. Rabbits, yeah, I haven't seen you for a while. Yeah, so that's just one example. Like, have a couple of other examples, like of this in the comic book industry. So there is an entire comic book convention that is funded by the Arts Council to the tune of. So they give out 1.6 billion over 4 years. That's the entire Arts Council. So there's your financial incentive. There's 1.6 billion pounds on the table.
I asked why they gave I think it's over £1 million to the Serpentine Gallery, and their chairman, the chairman of this gallery called the Serpentine Gallery, is someone called Michael Bloomberg. You may have heard of him. He's a billionaire. Ex-mayor of New York, and you think with a billionaire chairman, why is our Arts Council paying £1 million to this venue for anything at all? No reply. I didn't get any reply to that. Can't think.
Shocking. And again, that's another example of the interrelationship between billionaires and the media, and it literally runs his own media empire conglomerate or whatever. And a third example, Jan might be impressed with this one that I found. So naturally, we have a lot of enemies in the UK industry for saying things that are true. Like people don't like it when you do that. And one of these institutions that we've crossed paths with is this one, the Cartoon Museum, which is a museum, but they host like events there all the time. Recently, there was one that we took a little interest in. Cost £60 to go and sit at this lecture, and have some blue hairs scream at you or whatever. And they have just closed the installation of political cartoons, specifically at Boris Johnson. And I'm not a fan of Boris Johnson either. But they've been paid by the state to mock the former prime minister, because it's satirical cartoons. None of them are going to be positive or whatever. So lots of financial incentives for people who don't mind compromising their actual opinions. Just say what you're told and you can get some fat dollars for it.
It does make you wonder if they've taken a 1.6 billion. Was all that from the lottery? The 1.6 billion.
But some of it comes from the lottery. Some of it comes from the Department of Culture, Media, Sport, Digital, Heritage, and History. By the way, so they've got their fingers in a lot of pies. Has the Culture Department?
I just find that these figures are huge when you think of how much money that actually is.
Yeah.
And that can change a lot of people's opinions on things and make people, how can I say it, turn a blind eye to certain things and behaviours, and then all of a sudden you get what happens with you get certain people doing dodgy things for that type of money. This isn't. There's going to be, in all of this, there's going to be somebody's been stealing some of this money or doing other things behind the scenes, fraud.
Well, there's actually an amazing part in this in the pamphlet, which I didn't write. This is I wrote the pamphlet, but there's a little part in it that I didn't write, and it's by David Lee, who edits something called the Jackdaw. This is the Jackdaw. Independent views on the arts. So this is sort of, I write reviews for them, and they do book reviews and exhibition reviews and letters. And if you're an artist, you can publish your work in there as well. And the editor of this talks about how the Artichoke Trust gets £477,000 per year from the Arts Council. And oh yes, and where is it? There's yeah, I'm trying to see what the woman who runs it. The woman who runs it is paid an enormous amount. Yeah, so she's paid £163,000 a year.
It's like
And they oversee about 8 art projects a year. And she's not even doing this. She's got staff to do this for her. And she's getting £163,000 a year from the Arts Council, which is basically taxpayer money. So yeah, that's the sort of thing that the Jackdaw exposes. That's why I love them. So.
And that's why these people want to keep the circus running all the time, to keep getting that money.
Fantastic. I mean, she gets paid more than the director of the Tate Gallery, I think. Yeah.
He gets paid more than the Prime Minister, I believe.
Paid more than the Prime Minister. Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there you go. That's how you get your snout in the trough. Is you set up some sort of arts charity. You listening, Mark? Set up an arts charity, non-profit, purely non-profit, of course, except for what you pay yourself in salary, and get finishing your application.
Wow.
Yeah, profit's only what's left over after you've paid yourself a salary, isn't it? That's what profit is.
And if it takes you £163,000 per year to oversee staff to do something, that's how much it costs. And you're worth it. You're worth it, Mark.
I'm gonna put that on the application, like endorsed by Alexander Adams.
Oh no! If you put my name on any application, I'm afraid that's it. It's going in the bin.
I was reading a blog from a lady whose name I forget, and she was talking about like her experience of applying for one of these grants, and the realization that she came to that it's not really about the product itself, like that you're making, it's about the voices that about the ears that you reach, or the eyes that see it. And I've heard you talk before about how the establishment claim that they're trying to bring in more diverse audiences or whatever, which is a parallel to what we have in the comic book industry. But it's not real. It's all for these dollars. It doesn't matter if you lose £50,000 or whatever, not catering to your actual audience when you're getting £100,000 for doing that.
Yeah, and also, yeah. So that you're not thinking about the end consumer, because the end consumer is you. It's what you put in your pocket. It's not the product that you're turning out. Or especially if you're giving a product that, for example, sells to schools. It's like a protected thing, and the schools, and when the librarians buy your stuff, of course they're not spending their own money. They're spending the government's money. So the government is spending money to buy its products that is already sponsored. So it's like it's terribly incestuous, and it's sort of just burning through loads of money for products that are not very good. Yeah, and that's why Comicsgate is so wonderful, because it's the opposite of that. It's just like selling direct to customers, and you live or you die on how good your product is. Yeah,
definitely.
So there's a certain amount that on your first book, you can just drum up this is going to be the greatest book that you've ever seen. But once that first book drops, if you didn't deliver what you promised, then you're out.
That's it. You have to rely on your track record, because there's so much competition, and that's another good thing about CG is there's so much competition. People can very easily just go to someone else and say, I've got a limited amount of money. Your first book wasn't very good, mate. I'm gonna shift over to this guy.
Mm-hmm. Which is a good segue, because I totally forgot to do this at the top of the show. This is my book. This is the Duryodhana Purana. Like I'm adapting the Mahabharata, like the Hindu epic, into a comic book series. This is available now. Like the Duryodhana Purana is complete. Like if you back this, like right here, you can get that right now. Like I'll send that out to you. It's ticking along. The Duryodhana Purana is like the first part of a longer thing. We're working on this book, Krishna Kid itself, following like the childhood of Krishna. Like eventually, I don't know how versed you are in Hindu scripture, but it's gonna be dope. Like they can fly, they can throw fireballs. It's basically Dragon Ball Z, but 5,000 years ago, and it's got all this great like kind of sci-fi stuff like intertwined into it. Like there's flying machines, there's gods, there's cloning, like teleporting, time dilation, like all this stuff that I was just thinking that I read a thing that you wrote previously about how in the West we have this idea of the noble savages, like how we put all these ideas onto non-Western like cultures, that they must know some great mystery that we don't or whatever. But Mahabharata is excellent. Like is the greatest book in human history. Like it's got some real, like they talk about time dilation 5,000 years ago. Like that's incredible. So that's my book. If you're in the chat and you haven't bagged that already, like please do. You can see we're close to £10,000. It's over $10,000, but pounds is like
excellent. Well done. I mean, that's I mean, I also have to promote my book. All my books I've got, because I've got a few. But yeah, obviously, Culture War is the book that I'm sort of I push when I talk about sort of CG and sort of cultural insurgency and cultural entryism and so forth. And it was written a few years ago, but it's like, as he said, I mean, I wanted to show what was actually happening. I wanted this to be a document that future historians could use when they wanted to look at the origins of Comicsgate and say, well, yeah, it's got this one misses out a little bit, a few things here, but it is basically an accurate representation of how it started. And so I hope that people will read that and they'll and it's got good sources, it quotes sources and stuff. So it's not just me sort of spouting off, not just my opinion.
Yeah, and this is a thing that I don't know if people say this, like, but I read the first 38 pages of Culture War, because you can read the first 38 pages on Google Books for free. If you don't know that, that's the thing. And it's really well written. Like, I know that I'm supposed to say like, oh, I love the points that he was making and stuff, but it was entertaining to read, and it like, and ultimately that's the most important thing. Like, if it's boring, I'm not going to read it, am I? Like,
it's absolutely. I didn't want it to be dry. I didn't want it to be academic. I wanted it to be the sort of book that, a sort of a generally intelligent, well-versed person who wasn't particularly an expert in these subjects could pick up and read. And so it covers things like censorship and funding for the arts and why artists are poor. The answer is overproduction of artists, unsurprisingly, but there are other reasons as well. And then I talked about like the state of museums, and then I took as my big example, my big case study was Comicsgate, because I thought it was a fascinating thing, because I'm seeing this I write a lot about museums and exhibitions and fine art and stuff, and sort of like the sort of high culture stuff, but I see it also in pop culture, and especially in Comicsgate. So that was why I was particularly interested to look at that and report on it for a lot of people who didn't know about it.
Where's your book available to purchase?
Everywhere. Every book selling website has it. So you just look for Alexander Adams Culture War and you'll find it. It's available on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Smiths, all that sort of stuff.
Okay, lovely. I just wanted to put that out there. So
thank you very much, Jan. Yeah, you slipped in there with something that I missed. Yeah, so it's available in all good bookshops and in all good book selling websites. So
you touched on something there that reminded me of a thing that I thought of when I was listening to one of your previous interviews. And it's an idea that I'd been mulling around 2 weeks or so ago, I made a video about Owen Jones complaining about the media, about BBC bias, and Owen Jones, as you would expect, believes that the BBC has got a right-wing bias, and then anyone that you speak to on Twitter believes that the BBC has a left-wing bias. But I think that there's a layer of nuance that people don't discuss with this, that I think that both of those things are true at the same time, but in that the right wing has control over BBC News, and the left wing has control over BBC Entertainment. All of the fictional dramas and things that we see, those all have this left wing slant, and then the news, whilst it tries to be impartial, the people presenting the news, your Andrew Mars and everyone else whose names I've just instantly forgotten, they all lean to the right, and I think that is because of the way, the satisfaction that those jobs give and the amounts of money that they pay. Andrew Neil, that was the name I was trying to reach for. He's a ruthless, savage interviewer in it. And I disagree with him, but he's I enjoy watching him in it. And you don't get to host the prime time BBC News show without having that ruthless edge in it, and that competition that I think lends itself to the more right-leaning people in it, whereas the more left-leaning ones have got this, it's not about the money, I just want to do this creative job, I've got a scarf, and then I was listening to an interview that you was doing talking about your experience at art school, and how that was a more left-leaning place, and that anyone who presented any sort of clues that they might be right-leaning were flagged and shamed and such.
It's quite oppressive. I was speaking to a young person and they said they wanted to be an artist. I'd say, well, do you really? But if they were absolutely set on being an artist, I would say, well, you're maybe better off not going to art college at all, regardless of your politics, because you're not necessarily going to learn very much. I mean, I learned a little bit, but this was back in a time when, you weren't hit over the head with politics. There was a bit of politics around, but you weren't forced to conform. You were kind of expected to conform, and it was like conform. And now, one of the problems is you're going into an art school and they're not going to teach you how to paint. They're not going to teach you how to draw. You're expected to do that on your own. You're expected to talk to a technician. If you want to know how to carve this bit of wood, you go to the technician who works in the workshop, and you say, how do you do this? Or what temperature do you get your resin up to before you pour it and stuff like this? Your tutors, you're speaking to them about ideas and concepts and motifs and whether or not you can come to their next private view and, drink some white wine with their dealers or whatever. Art dealers.
I was going to say, that means something
art
very
dealers.
lower down the scale.
It may be different to some when you do illustration or graphics or animation or stuff. I should imagine it probably is that you're doing more hands-on stuff, more practical stuff. But in the fine art field, you're pretty much on your own.
Well, yeah, and you went to art college, didn't you? And apart from touching belly buttons, how does that echo your experience?
It's there's this fit. Alexander, very quickly, there was this thing. I went to a small country school, and there used to be a thing about if somebody had an outie belly button and an innie belly button, but we'll go away from that. But
you make your own entertainment in the country.
Yeah, in the country, you have to do what you have to do. But I went to art college, and when I was there, I found it was, what's the word for it? The projects that came through were almost designed that if you didn't show the same thinking as the lecturers, you'd get marked down. Example I can actually use for that is one of my friends who there was we had to make billboard designs, and they were meant to be for any, you could advertise anything on it, but you had to do it in a famous like artist, I can't remember who he did. Was it Gaudi? It's somebody anyway, and he did it on recruiting for the British Army. That was failure, because he was doing it for, and that was, and he said, "Why did you fail me for this?" They said, "Well, it wasn't that you've not finished the brief." And he was like, "Well, I have, because this is what I've created." And they said, "No, you haven't completed the brief in the way we wanted you to." And so then we had to.
That we didn't write down for you or explain in advance.
Yeah, exactly. So there was a lot of that where you had to translate what they wanted from you.
To read between the lines. Yeah.
Yes, without. But you never learned. I think we did life drawing in 3 years, 4 times maybe.
It's not enough. You need to do it every week. It's good stuff. I still do it when I can.
It wasn't. It was more to do with blocks of projects, and you had to make sure. And then you'd get people coming in, and they'd go, "Well, that one's quite good." And if you didn't get picked by the end of the year, that's your career done. That is it. Because in the retail side of art, to go to these art galleries, they don't want artists; they want celebrities to create art now, and then that's what sells.
Well, also what you find is that when you go to a publisher's website and you look at novels by new authors, they've got a big photograph of the author, and it's them talking about their life story, and it's it's usually a young pretty woman, sort of mixed race, and she talks about her heritage and stuff, and why she's there, and she is being sold rather than the novel. The novel. It's kind of like it's a byproduct. You're selling the personality, and that's how young authors get by now, which is very sad,
Yeah. On the subject of education and university, etc. I have a child who is 6 years old, and I was saying to him the other week, like. Oh, don't worry about going to university. Like, unless you go to Oxford or Cambridge, like, it's not worth it. Like, and even then, it's not for the quality of education. It's for the elbow rubbing with future ministers and stuff. Which leads me back to Owen Jones. Owen Jones should have gone to Cambridge, and then he'd be happy. Instead, he went to Oxford, like, and that's the source of all of his problems. Because it'd be in the left-wing BBC then, like, I'd be quite happy. Bristolian Dev says, I quit GCSE art because all they wanted us to do was make collages. I wanted to draw, although my art teacher did say I have very deep and emotional eyes. I should see how she's doing.
Oh, I would have to say hi to my former Bristolian colleagues. I used to live in Bristol, moved out.
Yeah, Bristol seems to be like a very art centre, like in the UK, outside, apart from maybe London. Like, it seems to be the place where it's all going down. I mean, it's we had a meetup of all of our UK CG people, like at a convention in Bristol recently, to talk about this book. In fact, Charlie's book, Charlie's London's like an official. Charlie Chaplin licensed like book. This is the second one. It's on £20,000. It's pretty sweet. Like it's real nice. Jan, any like progress updates on this? Like how's this coming along? I didn't know. I think there's been new pages added since last came and looked at this. How's it going?
Yep, it's coming along. It's coming along quite nicely. But this is Charlie's London book, my wife's book. Our artist. I went out to see him. I can't remember if I told everybody that I went Went out to see him.
To Portugal.
Yeah, to Portugal. Went out to see him. It was really nice to actually meet up with somebody in 3D, as you say, Mark. It was, but yeah, it's come along. We're up to page 49, I think now. So it's steaming ahead. The pages have also been rendered. So everything could get finished up, and then the lettering will be done, and then the big chore of bagging, boarding, posting for weeks and weeks begins. So yeah, we're very proud of this one. Is probably I think the story's more exciting because it's more about the films, but that's because I don't know. Charlie knows everything about Charlie Chaplin. That's why she's called Charlie's London, because of what she does with Charlie Chaplin. But this is more the films that I've seen. So I think it's going to be really good. Really, really good. It just takes time because the pages are so detailed that the artist does. It just takes time for them to come through, and it's a passion to create these books. I don't understand people who complain about working for these big companies. It's a something to do. You could be outside sweeping the streets. This is fun. So yeah. Anyway,
the comic book creation process is a lot of fun. Like even doing this, going on tour, doing the circuit, like to promote it, that's fun. But when they arrive at your house and you have to put them all in the bags and boards and in the mailers and stick on all the labels and stuff, that's a nightmare. Like that's so much more hard work. Like everything up until that point. Fun.
But just imagine you're posting little £5 notes into your bank account with each one.
Yeah,
that's very true.
A thing that I do, like on all of my campaigns that I've had so far, is I have the Comic Mark Wealth Redistribution Program, like where every package comes with like some cash, like that's basically worthless. Like so, everyone who backs Krishna Kid gets 200 rupees, which is the equivalent of 20 pence. Like on my last book, I was giving away like Soviet coins, like 10 kopecks or whatever, like, you know, real small, like that you can't use. And on my first book, the North Korean one, was giving away North Korean ones and it, like actual North Korean money. Like
where did that come from, or shouldn't I ask you?
The internet is an interesting place. Let's just leave it at that. So Jan leads me nicely to like this last thing. We're gonna wrap it up. We're coming up to an hour. Like I feel like we could do this for ages, but I've got one last thing. Go on,
before you go, Mark, Charlie's London did actually put a message in the chat to just pep me up, to make me feel good about myself.
Oh, yeah. My husband shilling my book is stuff of refunds. Yeah. Like American people like don't have this same like you know, in the UK, like we all mock each other like for friendship and it, like and some of the Americans really struggle with that. Like we've had instances in our little group where, you know, we're just bantering with each other and people like, oh, look what this person said. Like, no, he said it to me. Like, whatever, that's a sidetracked thing. So my book, £10,000. Charlie's book, £21,000. And you mentioned earlier about the department that funds the Arts Council. It was the Department for Culture and Sport.
Culture, Media, Sport, and Digital.
Okay, so this other video that I've been working on about the comic industrial complex. So, you know, Bashar al-Assad, the dictator of Syria. Obviously, you know, not a huge fan of Assad. But the UK government through the Foreign Office and through a bunch of NGOs paid Syrian artists to produce anti-Assad material and pro-white hats material for the so they paid those Syrian artists to make comic books anti-Assad ones. Paid them £40,000 for 48 pages. My book is 90-ish pages, £9,000. Charlie's book, I think, is 60, 90, something like that.
Yeah,
£20,000. So the Foreign Office paid people, non-domestic citizens in Syria, more than DC and Marvel pay their artists in it, to make these books. And then those books are used they get distributed to the Guardian, to Al Jazeera, through the propaganda network. So then it can say, oh, look, the people of Syria are opposed to Assad and stuff, which they probably are. I'm not saying oh, isn't Assad great or whatever.
I think you are. I think you've been caught on camera saying that. Exactly that.
Yeah, that's how it works. Opposing anything means that you support the opposite. But yes,
I should say, if anyone's interested in how British and American governments use soft power of Artivism, you want this book. Another book by Alexander Adams called Artivism.
It's good.
I can share the best of them. It was out last year, and it's all about how people use political activists have used art and art funding to push their message. So this is also available from all good bookshops and book-selling websites.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and soft power is exactly correct. I was talking about this in the post-show to that Owen Jones video. The BBC's real strength, the only argument that I can really see to support the BBC is its effective use of soft power, of neo-colonialism, of selling the Teletubbies to North Korea. That's a real thing, and that's where their influence is actually effective. Whether it's correct, that's a different question, but it's definitely effective. They teach Kenyans how to plant seeds they didn't know.
And you've got all the sort of, and they used to be known for producing really good dramas and stuff which would sell abroad, and Doctor Who selling to America and stuff, which we'll see how long that continues.
Yeah, that seems to be on the massive decline. That's one of the biggest entry points for UK people into this discussion around wokeism in media or whatever, which so I said before, I do believe there is oppression and systemic issues that we can change a few sliders, and things might be a little bit different, better for some people, but take some responsibility. I can't remember where I was going with that. Anything to add? I'm quite happy. Look how close we are to 1 hour and 6 minutes. Remember I said at the start, 1 hour, 6 minutes. Anything to add, Alexander? You got anything else to plug?
No, just that I think I've done enough shilling already. People can find my links in the show notes, or go back and sort of listen to the beginning of the interview. Just if you want to support me, then buy a book. Or if you're feeling like you want to support the sort of thing that I do, then come and become a paid subscriber on Substack. Otherwise, it's been fantastic to be with you. I've really enjoyed it.
All right, that's great. Me too. It's good to have my opinions not verified. That's not the word. Confirmed.
Stress tested.
Yeah, you've given me some great confirmation bias. So Jan, do you have a poem ready? Should we take it out? You ready to close the show? I'll give you a full screen. Oh, hang on. Before I do, thanks everyone for watching. Like, subscribe, all that jazz, etc. All right, Jan, take it away.
It's the found poem from the show, from what people have said, and from the chat as well. Thomas, the Toucan, I plead the fifth. Her husband's British. I follow, CG. It's a half joke I make. National Lottery funding. Thank you, Uncle Joe. 2000 AD. Used to be punk. Abolish the Art Council. Are these your pronouns? Self-made heroes. A UK-based artist. If I'm going to America, I'm wearing a parachute. Purely non-profit. Title of Jan's sex tape? BBC bias. Commie Mark Wealth Distribution Fund. Charlie, close the campaign. Stress tested. Good night.